Adoption of final budgets for fiscal year 2015 for the town of Penfield.
Moved.
Second.
Whereas the town board of the town of Penfield, having on the first day of October 2014, commencing at 7:30 PM, duly held a public hearing on the preliminary budgets for fiscal year beginning January 1st, 2015. Whereas all requirements of Article 102 through 109 of the New York State Town Law for preparation and adoption of budgets have been met. Whereas all requirements of Article 15 of the New York State Town Law for preparation and adoption of special district budgets have been met. Whereas in addition to the above legal requirements, a presentation of the 2015 tentative budget was made to the town board legislative body on September 3rd, and whereas all persons desiring to be heard in the matter of budgets for the town of Penfield for fiscal year 2015 have fully been heard.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Moore. Is there discussion? This is probably one of the biggest items that this board undertakes during the course of any given year, and that's the establishment and adoption of our budget. And I would ask the board any questions or comments.
Just, if I can, Mr. Supervisor, just a couple comments and a couple things that I just would like to point out. Just a clarification, if I can, and maybe Mr. Beeden's the better person to answer this question. Back at our public hearing, I asked about 15 or 16 different questions, and one was about state aid. And was the state aid decreased, not including the CHIPS funding that we get for our, consolidated highway program, but other than the CHIPS funding, was our state aid decreased this year?
Mr. Beeden, I'm gonna have you come right up to the microphone. We want to see your smiling face on the camera, and plus we get an opportunity to give you a little bit of recognition for your effort on the budget.
I'm Bob Beeden, Town Controller for the Town of Penfield. No, there was not sufficient amount of state aid reduced. We
Okay.
had the same amount of per capita aid in the budget that we received this year.
All right, and so the state aid for the consolidated highway program, the program that our town public works department uses to repair and fix our roads, that was increased by a small amount, wasn't it?
Yes.
Okay. All right, thank you, Mr. Beeden.
bet.
Mr. Supervisor, I'd like to thank you for your,
Why don't you sit right here, Mr. Beeden, in case we have any other questions. We're not going to let you get away that easy. Sorry.
for your advocacy for that increased aid. I know that the town highway director goes to Albany every year and meets with state representatives, both in the Assembly and in the State Senate. And I know that you are actively, have active dialogue with our state elected officials in pursuing additional funding for that program. So we appreciate you doing that and your commitment to trying to secure as much funding as we can. I don't want to go through the questions again, but there's just a couple things that I wanted to point out that I think is worth talking about. The 4th of July festivities that we have every year here in the town of Penfield are just an incredible opportunity for families to get together. Most of the time it's great weather, and I know the supervisor is responsible for the weather, so we thank him for that. And it's a great time. And so, Mr. Beeden, you were telling me back at our public hearing that we do have proper funding for 4th of July festivities, including the parade and fireworks for 2015. That's correct, right?
Correct.
Okay. And also, we do have proper funding for our concert series. We have 3 different concerts at the Penfield Amphitheater every year. I believe there's somewhere between 12 to 16 total concerts. And we do have the funding available for those. Is that correct?
Yes, we do.
Okay. Bunny Brinkman is here tonight. And again, Bunny, I appreciate you being here at the budget vote, also along with our public hearing that we had a few weeks ago. So thanks for coming out. Bunny and the supervisor and Bob get together every year and go over the library's budget. And, it goes without saying what a tremendous asset the Penfield Public Library and the library system is to the Penfield residents. I think every year attendance and membership at the library continues to grow and grow. They have a wonderful book sale every year that seems to get more and more popular, and it really is a true gem in this town. And so, Bunny, thank you for your stewardship of that. And Supervisor, thank you for your support of the programs at the library, too. Supervisor, you mentioned at the last meeting a little bit about the Healthcare Consortium and the savings that being a participant in that has to the town of Penfield. Can you just go into a little bit more of a brief summary of that?
Absolutely. The town joined, we were one of 6 communities that joined the Healthcare Consortium. We are now at 15, so we've continued to grow that. And then the idea there is that we're able to better leverage our resources and get information from healthcare providers, MVP Excellus, regarding programs and opportunities to help further reduce costs. This year, we're seeing an increase of 12%. A portion of that, approximately 3.5%, is part of the affordable health care. So it's a little ironic that we have affordable health care, but we have to contribute an extra 3.5 to that to make the program work. And if it weren't for that, we would be in the single digits. However, those communities, a number of those communities that are not part of the Healthcare Consortium are seeing increases anywhere from 18 to 30% for 2015, and that just is kind of a sign of the times of what's going on. So we're very fortunate to be part of that group. There are 3 really key components: manage our costs, get reliable data, and then the third component is wellness and being able to help from a demographic standpoint make sure that we're doing all those things on preventative care for our employees and the employees of our trust and their families.
Great, thank you. I know every year I try to make an effort to reach out to some of the department heads, talk to them about the budget that they're proposing in their departments. And I would just like to mention, Penfield Community Television, Dave Renner and his team downstairs, who are responsible for these meetings being live, responsible for the town website. I mean, there's a tremendous amount of information on the Penfield website. I don't think there's any other town in Monroe County that comes close to the amount of information that's available to residents, whether it's maps, whether it's zoning board, planning board, studies, documents, calendars, library information, events going on 4th of July, rec department events. It is all there and all accessible. And so I'd like to thank Dave and his team for their efforts in these tough budget times and putting together a budget that keeps this town moving forward in our effort to increase our transparency to the residents of Penfield. Also, I did talk to Chris Bilo, our recreation director, and I continually am impressed with his leadership in that department. He's a new recreation director. There is no doubt in my mind that the recreation department today is better than it has been in the past, and I think that Chris Bilo and his staff deserves a lot of credit for that. In my conversation with Chris, he mentioned a couple statistics that I thought were just unbelievable. In 2014, they had over 1,000 recreation programs offered to Penfield residents. The DEAR program, which is daytime education and recreation for our seniors, over 400 residents participated in that program. There are over 1,200 residents that participated in our senior lunch program at the community center. Roughly 3,500 people attended our amphitheater concert series, jazz music, and also our kids concerts that we do at the amphitheater here at the town hall. 900 baseball games at our Penfield athletic facility down here at Penfield Little League. Great partnership with Penfield Youth Baseball, Penfield Little League. An all-volunteer board there. They do a tremendous job, and it really is a wonderful partnership between the town and Penfield Little League. 250 soccer games were held on Penfield fields. I think that's just a lot of use and a lot of time spent in programming and logistics for all those kind of games for seniors and adult leagues. So I'd like to commend him for those efforts.
Okay. And it should be noted that there is one more quarter of data to be added to that.
Got it. So it's going to be well over 1,000. Great. That's good to know. A couple other things that I just quickly wanted to talk about. Mr. Beeden, at the public hearing, you presented, and unfortunately I didn't bring it today, so I apologize. You presented a map that showed the property taxes, the total property taxes of Penfield residents, kind of broken down if you live in the Penfield School District portion of Penfield, which tends to be the northern portion of town, or the Penfield School District, which is kind of mid-Penfield going down to the southern end of Penfield. And I think that's a real telling graph that you presented on your total property tax and how it is divided among the three different taxing entities. That's the school district, the county of Monroe, and the town of Penfield. Generally speaking, your school district will be somewhere between 68 to 70% of your total property tax. Your Monroe County will be somewhere in the range of 18 to 22% of your total property tax. And your town taxes will range anywhere from 7 to 9% of your total property tax. And so when you look at that and you look at what those numbers involve, a lot of people that I talk to don't really understand or haven't really looked into what their property taxes are and who controls how much of that property tax with the individual governing boards of those municipalities. It's the school board, whether it's Webster School Board, Penfield School Board, or the Monroe County Legislature, or this board, the town of Penfield. So when you look at the Penfield property tax, or the Penfield portion of your property tax, that's the town portion, you're looking at roughly 7.3% of 100% this body up here at this dais controls. In the Webster portion of Penfield, the Webster School District, it's roughly 8.4%. So 7.3% and 8.4% is what this body controls of your entire property tax. If you look at, let's just say, a $10,000 bill for your property taxes, this body, the town of Penfield, the town board would control, roughly in the range of $730 of that $10,000 bill. If you live in the Webster School District portion of Penfield, we would control $840 of that $10,000 property tax bill. And so the longer I'm on this board and the longer we look at those numbers and analyze those numbers, it's very interesting. And I think that the residents are starting to take a look at that and see who's responsible for their property taxes and what portion of their property tax bill their elected officials control. And so I just wanted to point that out. Also, Legislator Quattro kind of talked about this a little bit earlier. And of the 19 towns in the town of Penfield, in Monroe County, Penfield has the fourth lowest town tax rate. If you look at all 19 towns, the town of Riga has no tax rate. They have no tax rate because they have the mill seat landfill in the town, which basically pays their town taxes. Then you have the town of Henrietta, and as we all know, with the astronomical amount of retail, commercial, and industrial facilities and properties in Henrietta, they have a very low property tax bill. And then the town of Perrington is number 3, just a little bit lower than the town of Penfield, and they have the High Acres landfill, which supplies, I think, close to $1 million towards their property taxes for their town taxes. And then you have Penfield at number 4. So I commend you, Mr. Supervisor, for holding that tax rate stable in the town. As Legislator Quattro mentioned earlier, the tax rate going into 2015 here in the town of Penfield will be less than it was in 2002. Some towns in Monroe County, their tax rates are as high as $6.51. Greece, for instance, is $6.31. Irondequoit is $6.51. Brighton is $5.35. And in Penfield, we're at $2.64. So significantly lower than some of the other towns. Of the 19 towns, I believe 10 towns are having property tax increases going into 2015. Penfield is not having a tax rate increase for 2015. So thank you, Mr. Supervisor, for your commitment. I did become aware, excuse me, earlier in the week, the town went to go refinance some of its bonds in our cost savings initiative. And Mr. Supervisor, if you can take just a couple minutes and kind of explain that and what our actual cost savings were to taxpayers of Penfield with the refinancing of the bonds?
Absolutely. Mr. Beeden, myself, and Mr. Horwitz met with our financial consultant. We identified a number of bonds that were callable, which meant we had an opportunity to take a look at them and also take a look at the market. And what we were able to do through some preliminary work was to identify approximately about $147,000 worth of savings by calling those bonds early and getting a lower rate, not extending the term of the bonds, but getting a lower rate, thus saving the town a total of $147,000. Mr. Beeden kept his eagle eye on that, working with our consultants. And when all the dust settled out from that, we were able to actually gain 157 and change, right to the penny, right? 157.4. So we were able to get an additional $10,500 more on those callable bonds. And again, that's lower cost. It's part of our effort to look for ways to manage our cost. But we also did it in a way that did not extend the life of those bonds. So great job by Mr. Beeden, Bernie Donegan Company, Dick Horowitz, and yourself, Mr. Beeden, for coordinating that effort on behalf of the town.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. And lastly, I just kind of want to point out that earlier in the week, I read that Moody's credit rating, which did the credit rating for the town of Penfield, also did the credit rating review or analysis for one of our public improvement bonds, put out a general report. And some of the statements in the report, I think, were very complimentary towards the stewardship, the financial stewardship of this town. And so I just want to kind of point out a couple different things that this Moody's credit rating, or Moody's and investors, had to say about the public improvement bond that we currently put out. The AA2 rating reflects a well-managed and healthy finances as evidenced by strong liquidity and reserve levels, a moderately sized suburban tax base favorably located within Rochester metropolitan area, modest debt profile, and manageable net pension liabilities. Points out some of the strengths: strong fiscal management, including multi-year budget forecasting. Some of the strengths: modest debt burden. Penfield's prudent management practices will help keep the town's finances at healthy levels through the near term. Moody's also says, since 2011, town management has actively managed the budget through position control, conservative assumptions, as well as maintaining a 3-year budget forecast. So I just wanted to point that out to the town board, that came from Moody's Rating in their description of the town of Penfield. So thank you very much.
Great, thank you. Other comments?
Well done, Councilman Moore. I agree with everything that he said, and a great segue to a couple of my brief comments. Certainly, we've mentioned the department heads within the town. I also would like to commend our staff, our incredible staff people. Make no mistake about it, your town tax is a very small portion of your tax bill. I encourage residents to take a look at their tax bill and the breakdown. And as Councilman Moore mentioned, you're talking 7 to 8 cents on the dollar that goes to run the town. But I think that I encourage residents to not stop at your tax bill, but take a look at the bang for the buck that you get in the town of Penfield. Take a look at the recreation programs you can enjoy, the special events, 4th of July that draws thousands of people from the entire area. Take a look at how your roads are taken care of and your sidewalks in all seasons and all hours of the day. And I think at the end of the day, you can take a look at that very small 7 to 8 cents on a dollar and see that as a resident in the town of Penfield, in comparison to other towns, you get quite a bang for your buck. But make no mistake about it as well, that this town board, our department heads, our staff, and certainly under the leadership of Supervisor LaFountain, we take that small tax very seriously, as you can see. So just because you have a smaller couple $100 is your town tax for some people from year to year, that doesn't mean that we don't take each dollar very seriously. As our friends in the state have shown us, spending money is very easy. It's cutting money that's difficult, cutting spending that's very difficult. And our department heads take that job seriously. They make very difficult decisions as we go through the budget process, along with Mr. Beeden certainly guiding them as to appropriateness of expenditures. So I wanted to commend department heads, Supervisor LaFountain, my fellow town board members for leading the charge, but also from the top down in the town of Penfield, our staff gets it and is able to work as a whole team to produce what I believe, again, is a really good bang for your buck.
Thank you.
Well said, and I agree with everything you said, and Andy and all the information he provided. It's very important that people understand how much goes into this budget and what we represent as Penfield in the big picture of all the other towns in the county. And on that, I want to, commend the town supervisor and certainly our finance director, Bob Beeden, for all the work they put into this, to keep us apprised of what's going on, but they spend, full-time job taking care of this budget during the budget planning season, and thank you to all the different directors and so on for all the input they put in. And I just wanted to bring up, we're very transparent here, and Andy mentioned about what we have, the information that goes up on the website and so on. What goes on the website? I was looking at it today, and it astounds me how much all the questions, people submitted questions during the process or anticipated questions, and they're all listed right there under the budget. So if you had any kind of question that's probably been answered, there would be a question then with a response under there. I mean, it's amazing all the transparency that goes on and all the work that's put into it through Bob and Tony and downstairs at PCTV and Dave Renner. He's putting all that information up for the residents to look at. So I thank you all for all that information and transparency that goes on with our budget.
Thank you. All right. Mr. Quinn.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. Just briefly, my colleagues have done a wonderful job with the recap of the budget process and the importance of this resolution that we're going to pass here momentarily. And I too want to congratulate the supervisor, Bob, the department heads, as well as all staff for really doing a great job in holding the line and making sure that the town is not spending frivolously, because it's not our money, it's town taxpayers' money, and I think that's often lost in the shuffle. But I think the five of us truly understand what we are doing here as far as being stewards of the community and the financial and fiscal responsibility we have for the taxpayers in this community. I've said every year since I've been on the board that of the 200 or so resolutions we pass every year, none is more important than this one. Each year, this is the #1 priority. Everything we do in the preceding year or the previous year up to this point, and everything that we plan on doing in the next year stems right here from this resolution that we will pass momentarily. So again, congratulations to the supervisor, to Bob, to department heads, and I think that this is a wonderful budget resolution moving forward into 2015. Thank you.
Okay, great, thank you. Seeing no more comments, I would ask for a roll call vote of the 2015 town budget.
Call.
Aye.
LaFountain.
Aye.
Metzler.
Aye.
Moore.
Aye.
Quinn.
Aye.
5 ayes.